Taking it from the top, what are the things that you see when it comes to training for muscle growth that are the biggest mistakes people make?
On a serious note, if I had to be scientific about it and explain the biggest source of variance in not growing muscle, on a serious note, if I had to be scientific about it and explain the biggest source of variance in not growing muscle over, let's say, a timeline of about a year, which is a realistic amount of time for like people who haven't seen you in a year to be like, holy crap. It has to be consistency. Because if you just go to the gym and scream a lot and do crappy technique, crappy volumes and crappy loads and do a lot wrong, but you have a requisite intensity that's anywhere north of reading the newspaper, and you just show up multiple times a week over and over, you're going to get some results. So yeah, consistency is a big deal, but it's not the only deal. If you do something consistently, my thought on that is you might as well do it pretty well. You don't have to go all crazy sciencey like we're going to get into in the next, whatever, half hour, however long it takes you to get pissed and kick me off. But when you are consistent, it multiplies the emphasis that you should be doing whatever it is you're doing quite well, because gee whiz, you're committing a lot of time to it, a bit of a sunk cost there. Might as well optimize on the margins, and then we can talk a lot about all the details.
Okay. One of the first places that people are going to go to, and I'm going to guess one of the most common questions that you get asked, what exercises do I need to be doing?
Yeah. All of them, bro.
Right. Yep.
That's it. And then I just walk away and they're like, wow, that guy's supposed to be smart or something like that. Yeah. But then they see the back of my very shiny head and it makes them happy.
Yes. Okay.
Which exercises? So there is a lot to say about it, but you can start with the supposition that it's whatever exercise nominally targets the muscle you want to grow. So if you want bigger biceps, some variation of doing this is probably good. And then to be honest, that's maybe 80% of the answer. So if a lot of people, here's why I'm saying that. A lot of people will look at, let's say for quads, they'll look at hack squats, they'll look at leg presses, they'll look at lunges, and they'll look at regular high bar squats. And they'll vex themselves infinitely over the question of which one of these is superior, which is kind of like asking, I need to get to Austin, Texas in 2 days. Which airline should I take? Like you ask someone who works at the airport, like, which airline's like really the one I should be taking? They're like, I don't know. All of them really get you there. There are subtle differences, but at least make sure the ticket says Austin, Texas. So if the exercise hits that muscle, then you're good to go. Now, there are ways of seeing which exercises hit the target muscle that you want. A couple of what we at RP call proxies for stimulus. So this is something like tension. The perception of a lot of tension generated or exposed in that muscle. So if you're doing chest flies and you feel a crap load of stretch and pulling in the chest, that's probably good. If you're doing what you think is a chest fly, but you misread the machine's instruction thing and you feel a ton of tension in your biceps or your forearms or your shoulders, but you don't really honestly feel anything in the chest, on a just pure physics perspective, because of the mechanics of the movement, your chest has to be getting some exposure. But maybe you could be doing better by actually doing the exercise in a way or picking an exercise that really you feel some tension off of. Another clue to if you're stimulating the muscle properly is the burn. And that's seen in a medical context when people don't wear proper protection. I know that resonates with you personally because of the conversation we had right before this. I don't mean to expose you, but look, Chris, you could just be making better choices is what I'm trying to say. All theoretical, I've never been with a woman, as everyone who watches our YouTube knows. But on a serious note, the burn is in especially higher rep sets when you start feeling the accumulation of metabolic byproducts in the target muscle. So the chest fly analogy, if you're doing high rep pec flies and at the end of that set, your pecs are burning, hey, that's probably good. You're probably getting a good stimulus there. On the other hand, if it's just your biceps that are burning, but your pecs don't really feel much, are you getting a stimulus in that exercise? Oh, yeah, sure. Is it guaranteed to be a really robust, really good stimulus? Probably not, because you should be feeling some combination of tension and burn. And then also there's pump. Again, none of these are mandatory, but together they're kind of like puzzle pieces that take what could be a C+ exercise for you and make it an A+ exercise if you're getting all the feelings right on this. So another one is pump. how much after several sets of the workout or of the exercise, how filled with fluid is your target muscle. So if you're doing pec flies and after a couple of sets, a girl walks by and you're like, "What's up?" And she's like, "Oh my God," and she runs away. I guess that's good, even though she ran away, but she ran away in a way that she obviously respected your pec size, which is the whole point of the gym. But if you do a bunch of sets of something, let's say you're doing pec flies, your shoulders are pumped, your biceps are pumped, even your forearms look more veiny, but you can honestly say your chest has changed in any visible or palpable way. No doubt still trains your pecs, but maybe not that great. Another one is perturbation, which kind of presents itself in two forms. One is that target muscle feeling really weak? So let's say you do a few pec exercises and you think they're for the chest, and then you try to push yourself into your car, like push off your steering wheel, and you feel like a profound weakness in that pec. You're like, oh my God. And a really good example is if you're trying to walk downstairs after you hit quads.
Yep.
If you think you hit quads, but you really hit glutes and adductors, you can hop, skip down the stairs, no fucking problem. Are we allowed to swear in here, or is that not a good idea?
Yep.
Sweet.
Whereas if you're doing this on the handrail.
Yes, like desperately clinging for dear life and,
Yep.
and your legs are shaky. Another thing with perturbation is crampy. None of this is required. But if your chest cramps hard when you're trying to pose after a few sets of whatever you're doing, the whatever you're doing absolutely hit your chest. The other thing is weakness too. So if I tell you, hey, this mega pec workout, what's your best bench? And you're like, well, it's like, 200 pounds for a set of 10. And I take you through a mega pec workout. After that, if we put 200 pounds on there, if you bench it for any close to 10, your pecs never got very fatigued, which almost certainly means they never got very stimulated. So you should see a pretty big repetition strength drop off. If you can barely do a push-up after a chest workout, oh shit, something happened to your pecs for sure, especially if you feel like your chest is the kind of onus of weakness in that movement. So those are all ways to kind of proxy that. And I would say another one, again, not a huge deal, not the deal, but a good little additive to the mix is, do you feel any kind of weakness or soreness that persists for hours or days after? So for example, if you do some kind of new quad machine at your gym and 2 days later, your inner thighs are sore, your glutes are physically sore, your quads aren't, either the way you did it, which I'm sure we'll get to technique, or just the exercise itself. It says quads, but it's really not quads. Maybe it is to some extent, but you would expect if you had a novel stimulus to feel some kind of soreness. But if you did something that says quads on it, and then the day later you can barely walk and you're sore to the touch, man, you have to have stimulated your quads. There is no alternative. So all those things are in the plus side category. And any exercise that hits a bunch of those check marks for you, man, that's a good exercise for you. And we're all different. So some people respond better to pec fly machines, some people to dumbbells, some people to cables, some people to something in between. Whatever exercise checks those boxes for you really well, that's probably a good exercise for you, at least for the time being.
What about stimulus to fatigue ratio?
The fatigue part is a big part. So what I just described was the stimulus proxies. Basically like indirect ways to know like, hey, did I get a good stimulus? But fatigue's important. So another way to categorize exercises is how much fatigue they cause, which can be split up into a couple of different types of fatigue. One is joint and connective tissue fatigue. If you're doing some kind of skull crusher machine thing or a tricep machine, and every time you're like, ow, my elbows, ow, this is hurting a lot more. Is this an elbow exercise or tricep exercise? Maybe your technique is off, or maybe that exercise is just not that great. So you want as little joint connective tissue soreness as possible, as little exposure as possible in that regard. Now, humans are robust, adaptable creatures, so zero tendon and connective tissue stimulus of any kind, or fatigue rather, it's not the goal. You just want to get really pumped and really sore and really fucked up in the muscle for any degree of joint connective tissue. So if squats beat up your knees a little bit, but they fucking wreck your quads, sweet. But if you have like some kind of weird hack squat designed by people who don't know how to make machines, which is like at least half of all machines in the gym, then you're like, oh, this is like a knee exercise and my quads don't feel shit. That's bad news. Another thing is there's several different kinds of other fatigue. One is called axial fatigue, which is a special kind of fatigue that results from spinal loading. So you'll notice that the amount of fatigue on the system, if you do a lot of deadlifting, bent rowing, and squatting with a barbell on your back, is different and more intense than exercise programs that don't have those.
Why?
I'm not sure. More for science to figure out. But it seems like when the muscles that keep the spine erect are active a lot, or something to do with the spine, it fatigues the living shit out of you, which almost everyone who's ever deadlifted seriously has reported that the total fatigue tolerance of the deadlift is very low. You can do plenty of leg pressing, and it stimulates a huge muscle mass, gets you really fucked up, really sore, tons of lunges, but the fatigue is mostly local. When you do deadlifting, something leaves you that you don't quite get back. Systemic. And so axial may be a subcategory of systemic fatigue. There are other ways to measure systemic fatigue. Your desire to train. One of the reasons that you want to do some exercises you generally like is because your desire to train can stay elevated, and that keeps you coming back for more. If you have a low desire to train, it can actually physically result in the promulgation of more overreaching type of escalating fatigue, and then you're just going to be fucking out of the gym because you'll start hating the shit.
The stimulus fatigue ratio is kind of like bang for your buck.
It's literally and exactly only what that is, cost benefit, but expressed in muscle terms.